How do I create a better body image? Hi, my name is Dr. David Pendergrass. I specialize in biblical studies and interpersonal skills. I don't read many magazines. I find them not very helpful. I tend to read, I guess I'm a nerd, I tend to read scholarship, but I do like to read some magazines to figure out what is going on in the world and what other people think and other worldviews. I really like to be informed on what you might say the common laos in Greek, the common people read and think about. But something that frustrates me is when I hear people use certain philosophical and theological presuppositions and arguments in their views that seem to be unchecked and certainly oftentimes, hypocritical or at least self-contradictory. Sometimes they're helpful, but in general, what I'd do is just give you my thoughts on this. Here's an article. I gracefully ripped out this page in rage, and you can see that I wasn't rage. I try my best to. Anyway, this is from Men's Health, and Men's Health used to be, I think, a good magazine, a lot of exercise tips and health tips and whatever. And around the time of COVID, it got a lot more woke and all that stuff. So now I don't really like it much at all. So now I just barely skim through it. I just don't like it. Well, the opening, the editor's letter, there's a editor-in-chief, Richard here. He's responding to a question. He often gets these questions from readers. But the question to him was, how do I create a better body image? First, he talks a little bit about answering the common question, what's it like to work at Men's Health? You all have six packs and whatever. And he says, no, we don't, blah, blah. Then he says several things I thought worth reflecting on. This is the kind of stuff I'm thinking when I read these. If you're not interested, that's fine. There's a billion other YouTube videos to watch. But here are my thoughts on a few things I think may be helpful, particularly from a Christian worldview. He says to live in a body is to be constantly surprised and frustrated about what it will and will not do for you. And there's not a single person working at or reading this magazine who doesn't have one or more or many things about their physical appearance that they would change if they could. Okay. Such as the guy asking the above question, which was, how do I create a better body image? It's a smart question. And I'm not going to tell anyone their concerns aren't important or they shouldn't derive any kind of pleasure or pride from their appearance. Of course he has to say that. It's the number one thing you have to say in today's American culture. It's to say, I cannot tell you what you're thinking or doing or feeling is wrong. I can't do that. And so it's a way of telling this reader and the audience like myself, so this person asked the question, and anybody to say, first, I want you to know that I concur with the dominant worldview belief that I'm a relativist, and there's no such thing as telling you you're wrong. And I find that very sad and unfortunate. So if he should have said, I'm not going to tell you something, this concern about this issue isn't important because, he should have said that, but he doesn't. His point is, I can't say it's not important. That's it. So the point is, yes, you can if you want to, but he doesn't want to because he doesn't want to offend the person. And that's, you can't offend people. He'd lose his job, get canceled. Then he says this, feeling stronger and more confident after shedding a few pounds or noticing some new definition in your biceps doesn't make you superficial. Now the ethicist in me goes, and what difference does that make? Who cares if you're superficial? And that is always a problem with paganism or believing in naturalism, that all we are is matter and motion and we're just a form of evolved chimp. If that's all we are, who cares if we're superficial? What difference does that make? See, he's treating superficiality as if that is a bad thing. But that's preaching at me. Who are you, Richard, to shove your morality down my throat? What, Richard, if I want to be superficial, will you do about it? Who are you to judge me? What if the guy who asked this question, how do I create a body image, I think his name is Mark, if he wants to be superficial? You've just judged him already. But I bet Richard doesn't think that, because this is what happens in the real world. People don't think they're judging people when they say dumb things like this. This is demonstrably a value statement, and it's an implication there's a moral duty not to be superficial, and so he's telling people you shouldn't be that. But what if I want to be? In the Christian worldview, I don't want to be, but I understand the Christian worldview that I'm not just an evolved chimp, so I have a reason to appeal to morality. He says this doesn't make you superficial. Again, that's the assumption they're judging it. And then he says, and spending time, energy, or money on self-improvement, however italicized, you define and measure it, doesn't make you vain. It makes you human. Now, they're, of course, superficial and vain in American English is synonymous. So what he's done there is just made a little poem. That's cute. I mean, it's a cute thing is to say that shedding pounds or spending money, energy doesn't make you vain. Again, it assumes that vanity is bad. But why is vanity bad, Richard? Who are you to tell me that vanity is immoral? It makes you human. So what? So it makes you human is oftentimes a way for people to say it makes you one of us or normal. You know what also makes you human? Hurting people. What makes you human is lying and stealing. What makes you human is violence. What makes you human is having sex. What makes you human is breathing. There's a whole lot of things that make you human. The question is not whether or not you are human for doing those things. The question is that behavior moral? That's the question. And Richard has assumed that it is not, you can't be superficial. You can't be superficial. You can't be vain, but you can be human. So already it's an ethical morass. This is ethical nonsense so far. He's not clear on what is ethical, what is not. And then he says this, and this is the way of saying that, this is very common too. It's a way of saying something's moral without saying it's moral. Here he says, but body image is complicated and it's personal. And you don't need me or any stranger to tell you how to feel about it. Let me pause here for a second. This is also very common in modern day culture. It's personal. In modern culture, it seems to me, and I hear this all the time, videos, movies, TV shows, whatever. When someone says something is personal, what that means is I have the moral right to make a decision as I see fit as long as I call it personal. That is to say, my choice isn't moral. It's not even immoral. It's amoral. Some people say amoral, but it's amoral. That is, it's not a moral decision at all because it's just personal. But typically personal, not only do they mean that, which is silly because personal choices can be both moral, immoral, and amoral. Personal doesn't mean amoral. It's a personal choice not to rape people. That is my personal choice. But I don't rape people because it is immoral to do so. It's my personal choice. The way it's used today amongst us common chimps is if I say something is personal, it means you cannot tell me I'm wrong. And see, that's the code. Remember, don't forget, that's the number one sin of American modern culture is that if you say I'm wrong, there's something wrong with you. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that later on. That's the number one sin. And so that's called intolerance, bigotry, judgment, or whatever. You can't say I'm wrong ever, ever, ever. And to help guarantee that, there are two major ways in American culture we tell someone to back off. If I'm starting to feel offended, with two things usually it seems to me that we do. One is they say you can't judge me or don't judge me. That's the boom. The second thing is to say, but it's a personal choice. A third thing. Because this is new. This is new in the last few years at least. That is to say, it's my truth. But see, my truth is like saying it's personal, and so at least I put those in the same category. So this is what he's saying here. It's complicated. It's personal, and I give up. Body image, since it's personal, I have nothing to say about it. So when he says, you don't need me or any stranger to tell you to fame, well, of course, he is a stranger. You don't need me. You say, of course you don't need me. In other words, it's off limits. I can't tell you anything about body image at all. Why? Because it's personal. You can choose to give birth to a child or hire a hitman or hitwoman to murder your child. It's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. That you can't judge me for it. It's my truth. And that's the idea of personal choice. Same thing here is that it's personal. I can't say anything about it. Not that you don't need. What you should have said is not you don't need me to. This demonstrates the contradiction. It's not that you don't need me to. It's that now I know I can't. Because if I tell you anything about your body image, I have crossed the line and started judging you. And then he says, besides, what I say probably wouldn't matter. I could tell you that other guys don't really care about your, brackets, insert insecurity here, and that your partner doesn't really care, and that you should love your body and just be grateful for your health, but you're not going to listen because whatever is bugging you comes from a place beyond reason, a much deeper place of individual pathologies and cultural expectations around pride, shame, aging, and masculinity. Now, it's amazing how much judgment is latent in that sentence. It really is. I'm not being mean at Richard here. I'm just saying I'm being very consistent here. That is to say, first of all, I'm judging you because, Richard, you're not going to listen to me anyway. That is to say, your question, how do I create a body image, did not come from a place of rationality. That's a place of reason. It doesn't come from reason. It comes from beyond reason. So whatever I say to you that sounds reasonable, you're not going to get it. Because the question didn't come from reason, it came from something deeper, an individual pathology. Now, pathology is the study of disease or injury and cultural expectations. So that's to say it came from one or two places, or maybe both these places. It came a much bigger place of. He says and, so it comes from two places. So your question, how do I create a body image, did not come because you thought it through and you have a reasonable expectation for an answer. It came because there's something sick with you. There's something wrong with you. You have a pathology. And two, it came from cultural expectations. Cultural expectations is another way of saying society. Society is just an English word that means a bunch of people. So it's saying the expectations you have about yourself, you didn't come to them on your own. They came from your deep, twisted inside pathologies, and it came from outside people telling you what's supposed to be something that brings pride or shame or aging and masculinity. I mean, I couldn't fathom, I guess maybe, I mean, it'd be difficult to be more condescending. It'd be difficult to be more condescending than what he just said. You're too stupid to answer. Even if I told you what to do, I can't tell you what to do. You don't need that, but I can't tell you because your personal choice. But I would tell you what to do, and I would tell you what to do is to get over it, be grateful for your health. I would tell you what to do, but I can't tell you what to do because it's personal, and you don't need me. You're not going to listen anyway. Why? Because you're too stupid to understand it. You're too sick and twisted, and you're too influenced by outside people. You're just an idiot moving to and fro of the wind in cultural norms. Man, I'm sorry, Richard. Richard would say to this person, I'm sorry that you're such a influenceable moron. I mean, I would try to help you. You're just too stupid to get it. And sick. I mean, the pathologies, golly. But hey, don't forget, remember, that's a smart question. That's a smart question. That's what he said earlier. It's a smart question. How is that smart, Richard? You just said it didn't come from a place of reason, and he's too stupid to get it anyway. I mean, this kind of gibberish is all over the place in the world. From magazines, editors-in-chief say stupid things like this. Stupid. Well, that's the main thing, and I'll talk more about that, some other stuff later on. He goes on and talks about how, and this is real important, in the rest of this magazine, we're going to cover some of these answers, these issues, and we're going to say, he says, there are so many varied reasons why so many of us have lousy body images. Varied reasons. You would think you say there are two reasons we have varied body lousy. And why is it lousy? What does lousy mean? Who are you to judge people's body image? But he would say there's only two reasons. One is because either everybody, like the guy who asked the question, is an incompetent idiot, instinctual, feeling, pathological loser, or we've all been influenced by outside people. But apparently, that's not what he believes about everyone like me. Apparently, only the person who asked this question. He knows Mark apparently so well that he knows his individual pathologies. And I mean, that's just, boy, that's amazing. Or it's really a bunch of hubris. And then he says this. So there's a lot of reasons why we have lousy body images. Then he says this. There is only one solution, however. So solution, I perk up. Here we go. Richard's going to tell me the solution that I've been waiting to hear. There's one solution. Richard now is going to reveal it to me as the one evolved chimp to another. He's going to tell me. He says it this, and it begins and ends with how, italicized, you decide to feel about your body. Mic drop. That's it. So the solution is it begins and ends with how you decide to feel about your body. So that's why your question's stupid. How do I create a better body image? You don't. You just decide how you view your body. That is, there's no sense of getting better or worse. It is what it is. If you think you're like a horrible, ugly person, then okay, so what? If you think you're beautiful, handsome, pretty, whatever, so what? You get to decide. Don't talk to anybody else about it. I wouldn't have a conversation because he says at the beginning and the end, it's about what you decide. It's absolutely subjective and relative. So it's a smart question. In what way then? It sounds to me that it sounds like he thinks the question's dumb. And then he says, the men in our stunning photo portfolio, everybody is perfect, each decided at some point to stop letting others dictate how they would see themselves. Okay, that's back to the culture issue. And they stopped letting everybody else decide. Well, good for them, right? He thinks that's a good, virtuous thing. It's bad to be superficial and vain. It's also bad to let other people decide for yourself. That's bad. And in Richard's view, the only thing that's good, the only solution is what you think. So it's bad. And he says, from physical therapist Elia Parker, who escaped jokes about both gender and weight as a youngster to become a fitness inclusivity advocate for heavier people. And then to Cody Young, and there we go. And at the very end, they're strong, and strong, you think, is the virtue, and self-possessed and totally convinced of their awesomeness just the way they are. Stretch marks, jiggly hips, and all the rest of it. That's a goal worth pursuing. Boom. Why? Because that's the goal. Because it's all up to you, no matter what you do, except you're supposed to have the goal of accepting yourself. But if you don't, that's okay, because it's not your fault, because you're an incompetent, instinctual, pathological idiot who is so swayed by outside people. But it's a good question to have, but it's a dumb question because it's not for you to decide anyway. You can't be better. You just decide. Okay, anyway, you get the point. So this kind of stuff that goes on. One quick question then about, is there a way to create body? Body image is how you see yourself. Body image is a somewhat complicated issue, but in a nutshell, body image is the self-perception you have about the way you look. Do you value or dislike? Do you value or devalue the way you look? And of course, it can involve your own behavior and so forth. But about body image in particular, you might say how you think about it. And usually you can tell when you look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, do you have somewhat of a neutral stance? Do you go, ugh, or do you like it? And in general, body image does have a huge effect for some people if it's strong in either way. Some people don't have a strong opinion about it, so it's not very influential in their life. Like, I'm fine, I don't care. I'm a solid 5 out of 10. Who gives a rip? I don't, whatever. But people have a real strong view about how pretty they are and how handsome they are, tend to put a lot of value in that. They have to maintain that beauty. Hence all the Botox and all the people stretch all their skin back, look like the Joker and whatever. If you have a real low view of yourself, you tend to have a lot of disorders. It leads to all kinds of eating disorders and also just other body dysmorphic disorders. People who can be really, really fit, bodybuilders, they can have horrible views of themselves. Horrible meaning very unhealthy, detrimental, even deleterious. Some people, of course, can commit suicide because their body image is so low. They can have real severe disorders and body dysmorphic disorder. So body image can be very influential, and it does matter when it comes to your sense of self-worth and self-perception. Let me say just very quick things about that. One is, if you do think that you do suffer from a low body image and you think badly of yourself and feel badly of yourself, or let's say it this way, you feel shame. That is, you feel worthless or valueless or of very low worth. When you think about your body image, I highly encourage you to see a Christian therapist. You need to talk to someone because it can be very influential in a negative way of your life and productivity and success and the way God designed you to live. It can be like living in a prison, a very powerful negative motivator influence in your life. And so you don't need to be in that prison the rest of your life. You don't need to be. And there's never any good reason to commit suicide. I mean, there's just not ever, but certainly not that. And so you need to make sure you reach out to people to get help, because there is help. There's a lot of help to get help. I mean, there just is. People specialize. There are books, there are YouTube videos, all kinds of things. That's for sure. So is it true that a person can have a low body image? Yes. Is it fully up to you? Well, yes and no. Some people suffer from different legit pathologies and they have real disorders. So again, there's treatment for that, medication, all kinds of stuff. But what about the normal person who may not have, and by normal, I don't mean in a judgment state. I mean normal in the sense of statistically normal, that is the average person. The average person, usually the average female struggles with this. The average male, studies demonstrate, tend to have a much higher view of themselves. And the females judge the physical female selves much more harshly and other females harshly. And female studies demonstrate judge males much worse than males judge women. So females tend to struggle the most with this because they put much more value on the physical appearance. I do think it has a lot to do with a subconscious biological urge to be mateable, to be attractive. See, men tend to find their worth and their value instinctively by how much they can provide for or protect. And so men feel more confident if they're taller or stronger. And they tend to have what we call a Napoleon complex when they're smaller or shorter. I've been around a lot of shorter guys or skinny guys. When they're older, they tend to talk about it all the time because it's on their mind all the time. They feel less of a man, oftentimes, not all the time. Females are different. Females don't find their worth and value instinctively from how much they can provide or protect, but typically how much they can be attractive. And that just tends to be the case. It tends to be the case. Not every single person, but tends to be the case. So it is a real issue. But let me say a couple of quick things about that, and I'll wrap it up. One is to say there are different issues, and you can improve in your self-image, but one of the major things you need to work on, if I were working with you as your counselor and a Christian counselor, what I would say is, number one is I would try your very, very best to live out your life according to your values, and one of your values needs to be, I don't place my value in the way I look. Really, you need to place your values in other things. So I hope that your chief values would be, the Christian worldview, be like Jesus, live like him, act like him, talk like him, treat people like him, love people like him, and be a part of the God's reign or the kingdom of God in your life at all times. That's got to be the chief number one value if you're a Christian in your entire life, no doubt about it. Which means that beats everything. Or Jesus said it perfectly, to seek the kingdom first and his righteousness. Of course, in Matthew 6. That's your number one goal. Your number one chief goal cannot be what your hair looks like or anything else. It can't be. It shouldn't be, rather. It should not be done, the Christian worldview. Well, David, does that mean I'm a dirty, rotten sinner if I struggle with the way I look? Well, yes, it does. No, I'm kidding. I don't think so at all. I think if we're not careful, what I'm saying is we can live our life and make decisions based on things. We always make decisions based on what we value. I'm encouraging you to make sure what you value is not that. And one way you do that is you get very explicit about that. You go, do I really value? How many decisions do I make based on my looks? How much money do I spend? How much time do I spend staring at myself in the mirror, talking about the way I look, beating myself, saying poor things about myself, saying happy things about myself? See, the great beauty in this point is not only is it true that your value is not based on what you look like, it also means the corollary is true that beauty is relative. So for example, if you say, this is very common today, we say, oh, you're so beautiful. You see this on TV shows, documentaries, whatever. The female doesn't feel very confident. The first thing, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. And we just say it over and over, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. Well, that's nonsense. Not everyone's beautiful. It's just it's just nonsense. Not everyone's beautiful. It doesn't work that way. Humans don't find everything beautiful all the time. So instead of trying to convince yourself you are beautiful, instead what you should do is develop the belief that my value is not based on my beauty level. So I might not be beautiful to you. If you're watching this video, maybe every single person watching this video finds nothing beautiful about me. Okay. Okay. I'll sleep fine at night. Beauty, I don't make decisions in life based on whether you think I'm beautiful. And you say, well, Dave, it's not so easy. Well, it might not be easy, but it is simple and it's true. That is to say, instead of trying to persuade yourself that you're beautiful based on any kind of standard, is to say, I'm not finding my value in that. I'm not. But the second thing I'd say is it true that you can make decisions for yourself because you yourself think something is more attractive than others? Or maybe you feel more confident, or maybe you feel better in something. Okay, we'll do it. In general, I would say do it. Some people have, especially when it comes to birth issues, they're born with, different extra growths, or their skin didn't develop, or their nose didn't develop rightly, and they go, I need to get plastic surgery. My view is, okay. Some people they're so profoundly made fun of, or they're so profoundly depressed. If a therapist didn't cut it, I'd say, okay. But still, then if a Christian worldview, I'd pray a long time before you go do that, because if you spend $25,000 on a surgery to get augmented breasts because you never liked that your breasts are small, there's a lot of orphans in the world. There's a lot of people who need diapers, all because you want a bigger breast or because you want your nose smaller, and it's that much money. I know that's all relative. I would say you need to pray about it, but in the Christian worldview, we really do pray about that, because we won't keep these bodies anyway, and is that the best use of your money? And so anyway, in that sense, it's a personal choice. I'm just kidding. It's certainly personal, but there's a moral component too. In the Christian worldview, it's not your money, it's God's money. And if you use your money chasing after things just so that you fit in, or just so you, I don't find that persuasive. And so where I do agree with Richard here in this article, from a Christian perspective, is we do not want to make decisions, moral decisions, decisions that are moral decisions. That is to say, a decision that could be moral or immoral. We don't want to be driven by that just because someone else tells us so. We want to be driven by Christianity and the Jesus way and the moral law, not just because someone else. If we're surrounded by a bunch of people who said, everybody around me says red hair is ugly. And I got made fun of a lot when I was a kid, a lot. That plus pale skin, white skin, I still get made fun of it from time to time. And so that was very, very common. But I didn't go dye my hair. Oh no, because I don't want to. Because clearly this is God's favorite color, and I know something they don't know, and that is the redheads will have extra crown. I don't know. I just tell myself all kinds. But all of a sudden, that'd be silly. So if you do struggle with bad body image, yes, there's help for that. Yes, there's work on that. You ought to do. You ought to improve your body self-image. You should, because it's going to help you tremendously. And how do you do that? Talk to a Christian therapist is the fastest way I'm going to say this. But I do encourage you, even while you talk to a therapist, I would really work on trying to find your value in things that matter the most. And surely beauty cannot be that and should not be that. Because that type of superficiality won't last. It doesn't really matter, and it's not a chief value in the kingdom of God. It's just not. And before we spend an inordinate amount of money and time and energy and focus on that, you could spend that money on anything else for the kingdom of God and be much, much more productive and fruitful for the kingdom of God, having a big nose. I mean, whatever. But I'll say this last thing. It's very common for people who have struggle with body image to struggle with another, just a generalized problem in your life, and that is having, we might call a critical parent voice in our mind all the time. If you struggle with looking in the mirror at all, and certainly if you struggle with saying bad things to yourself, mean things to yourself, they might feel very normal to you, but if they come across as very negative, let me say it this way. If you had a megaphone attached to the side of your head and your mind could use that and everyone got to hear what you say about yourself, they didn't hear all your thoughts, they hear what you say about yourself, what would you think about it? Will people hear you walking down the street and they go, or in the mirror and they go, wow, really good for you? They go, oh my goodness. They would say, oh my goodness, that's horrible, you probably struggle with that kind of deep critical parent, which means you struggle with shame. And so if you do struggle with a body image issue, it's very likely that you struggle with shame issues. Now, praise God, there's all kinds of work to be done in healing on shame issues, and there's all kinds of good books and videos on that. If you have more questions about that, let me know in the comments below. But I want to encourage you, if that is indicative of your pattern whatsoever, get the help. Watch some of my videos and some others as we talk more about shame, how to overcome that. But there is no reason to do that. There's no reason to. God did not put you on this planet ever. It does not make God happy for you to say mean things about yourself, whether the way you look, maybe the sound of your voice, whatever it might be. Saying hateful things to you is just a form of emotional abuse. It's being a bully, but you're doing it to yourself. It's allowing a bully to speak to you all the time. And that's mean. It's mean, it's unkind, it's unloving, and you're supposed to love yourself. And so I would encourage you to seek the help you need to make sure the bully voice stops, because you don't need to live that way. And I guarantee you the bully voice that you hear in your mind is not from God. It's not from the Holy Spirit. He's not telling you those hateful things inside. If you have more questions or comments about that, let me know below. If there's other videos like this you want me to do, let me know as well in the comments below. And I hope to see you next time. God bless you.